And what I found out is that the iPhone 14 Pro is not for everyone. For example, here are ultra-wide photos that I took using the iPhone 14 Pro and the S22 Ultra. Now, one of them clearly is more punchy, they're high on contrast and has very blue skies and just overall popping with colors, while the other one is very natural looking, balanced and not overly processed. So, which one do you think looks better? Alright, so the one on the left is iPhone 14 Pro and the one on the right is S22 Ultra. Now there's no right or wrong picture quality here, it's all about what kind of photo you prefer for yourself. Now if you see consistently across all the ultra-wide photos, it's not like the iPhone 14 Pro does not take great photos, it's just that they're not as colorful. And if I had to share, I would just go with the pictures that the S22 Ultra took. They're just ready to go right off the bat. Now, let's talk about the main primary lens, and don't get pulled into the megapixel count here, it's more about the optics. So here are a few pictures I took using the regular 12 megapixel mode on both the phones, and most of the times the daytime pictures were very similar. On the S22 Ultra, you can see that the greens and blues are processed more aggressively and the shadows are darker, which makes the photos very punchy. Now there were times when the iPhone 14 Pro photos would have some sort of haze, or rather the S22 Ultra photos just looked clearer. And sometimes the iPhone 14 Pro lost details in the shadows, like in this picture. Point being that if you take more photos in the daytime, the S22 Ultra just gives you slightly clearer and colorful photos than the iPhone 14 Pro. Take this photo for example. I'm not sure I like the iPhone 14 Pro photo at all. It looks really drab in front of the S22 Ultra photo. What I do like is that the iPhone 14 Pro's primary lens has this natural depth of field, and so photos it takes with backgrounds that are so nicely and naturally blurred. But things change in low light situations. So as long as there's good ambient lighting, the S22 Ultra does a good job even in low light. But when it's really dark, that's when the iPhone 14 Pro takes better shots. It's got lesser noise, more details, better texture, it's just higher quality and more pleasing looking images than the S22 Ultra. I mean, just look at the text for Hilton Garden Inn or the text for Inox over here. Just look at that clarity that the iPhone 14 Pro brings. So decide if you take more low light photos, the iPhone 14 Pro is clearly for you, but if you're more of a daytime photo taker, I think the S22 Ultra would be better. And now let's talk about my favorite kind of shots. I love portrait shots, and there are two things to think about: edge detection and color profile. Now at a glance, iPhone photos feel washed out when compared to the very color-rich, dramatic portrait photos taken by the S22 Ultra. iPhones always tend to take more natural-looking photos, which again is not a problem if that's what you want. But there's a bigger problem with the iPhone 14 Pro here. Pay attention to this stone area and just look at how evenly focused the S22 Ultra shot is, whereas the iPhone 14 Pro sort of failed at it. And here, see how iPhone mistakenly blurred out this little chain while it should have been in focus as you see on the S22 Ultra. This is basically S22 Ultra's stereo depth mapping that allows it to intelligently focus on objects in portrait mode, and the iPhone 14 series lacks that intelligence. So if you're looking for more accurate and colorful portrait shots, the iPhone 14 Pro is not for you. You're better off with something like the S22 Ultra. But hey, if you want, you can edit the iPhone photo and make it look like the S22 Ultra's portrait photo. But are you okay to do that for every portrait photo? Your call. Now, there were a few times where the iPhone 14 Pro took better and brighter portrait shots, but that was rare. Now, coming over to portrait face photos, and I think both are equally good in terms of quality, the way the sun and the skin exposure is handled, as well as edge detection. But again, you may still prefer the natural selfie look from the iPhone, and that's fine. But if you want something punchy, then you probably want to lean towards the S22 Ultra. The iPhone portrait photos, they're just not... Now, I don't believe that a lot of people use the macro mode, but for some of you that do, let's take a look. So both the phones use their ultra-wide lens to take these macro shots, and there's no denying that the iPhone stands out as a clear winner. Images are more detailed, they're sharper, but really, how many of you take macro shots? I mean, if you rarely do, does it matter which phone takes them better? Although Samsung has always been boasting about how they've had zoom lenses for quite some time, but the iPhone 14 Pro still takes much sharper telephoto shots. The S22 Ultra is again high on color and contrast, but it doesn't make up for the lack of clarity. Just look at this cute little thing. The S22 Ultra kind of lost the whole thing. Look at this text clarity of the word world mark. It's sharper for sure on the iPhone 14 Pro. And if you scroll down to the text behind, you can see how readable 1986 Delhi is on the iPhone 14 Pro shot as compared to the S22 Ultra zoomed in photo. Even in late evening, low light conditions, the text readability of the shot taken using the iPhone 14 Pro feels better in majority of the shots. And so if you're someone who tends to use zoom lenses, specifically the 2x or the 3x zoom, the iPhone 14 Pro camera is definitely the one for you. But from what I know, very few people use telephoto lenses in the first place, and a win in this area is not as important as winning in other lenses. Alright, so who's up for a selfie? Honestly, I think both are equally good. I think it just boils down to which color tone you prefer, the warmer tones on the iPhone 14 Pro or the more dramatic, colder tone on the S22 Ultra. Do note that the iPhone 14 Pro's front camera is wider, so it can capture more than the S22 Ultra at any given point in time. Alright, I'm switching gears to the front-facing camera and I'm trying to test out the video capability. So both can shoot at 4K resolution and at both 30 FPS as well as 60 FPS. But a couple of things to note here. So the S22 Ultra has this cold tone and the iPhone 14 Pro has this nice warm tone. So this is completely your preference, whichever one you like more. And in terms of audio capability, so the S22 Ultra is not as rich as the iPhone 14 Pro. The iPhone 14 Pro is just, it sounds better, but it also takes in a bit more noise than the S22 Ultra. So you really have to decide which one you want to go for. And the iPhone 14 Pro front camera is also a bit wider than the S22 Ultra, but that, I don't think it matters as much. So yeah, I think my perfect combination would be the S22 Ultra's colder look, but the iPhone 14 Pro's audio capability. Right, so this is broad daylight with some sun hitting my face. You can decide which one looks better, but let's see what happens when it goes a little dark. And that is how it looks when it's completely dark on the front-facing camera. Now, obviously, this is not like a very regular use case, right? I can't think of many people who do like a video call when it's completely dark, or even shoot using the front-facing camera, but what the heck, we can try it out. Now, I do think that the iPhone footage is a little bit more grainy, but of course it's still warm, and the S22 Ultra is just a little colder, but it does seem to have lesser noise. So I think the S22 Ultra footage is slightly better. Okay, let's talk about video now. And we can all agree that a lot of people lean towards the iPhone series for its video recording capabilities, and very rightly so. They are really good at that. But when the lighting is sufficient, like it is in this case, or in this case, the S22 Ultra footage is equally good, and in fact, some may say that it actually looks cleaner. In fact, I was really surprised to look at this footage where the S22 Ultra is warmer and it's handling white balance better than the iPhone 14 Pro. And tell me if I'm wrong. But where the iPhone 14 Pro's video capabilities really outperform? It's in low light videos, guys. I mean, just look at the way iPhone 14 Pro is handling that sky. It's so much more natural than what you see on the S22 Ultra. Even in pitch dark conditions, just look at the sky and you'll know what I'm talking about. The iPhone 14 Pro, very smooth, very less noise, and the S22 Ultra is just... I also tested out footage from the ultra-wide lenses, and the iPhone video is generally a tad bit brighter and more stable. I mean, even while walking, I can almost make out when I take a step on the S22 Ultra footage. On the iPhone, it's just smoother. You'll also see between the leaves, there's more information in the shadows on the iPhone footage and very dark on the S22 Ultra footage. The S22 Ultra also tends to add a magenta tone, while the iPhone footage is more natural and true to how the scene was back then. Now, Apple introduced Action Cam that can produce very stable 2.8K resolution footage when you shoot in not so stable situations. And on comparing, I was quite surprised to see that the iPhone footage was a bit grainy and not as sharp as the lower quality S22 Ultra's 1080p steady footage. I mean, I even prefer the color tone on the S22 Ultra. It's warmer, it's more natural, and the iPhone 14 Pro just looks washed out. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I had expectations on this one. But you know where the iPhone 14 Pro really does better? And so in general for videos, whether it's using the primary lens or the ultra-wide lens or even cinematic mode, the iPhone 14 Pro just does a better job. And so if you're looking out for a phone specifically for videos, I think the iPhone 14 Pro is just a better fit. Take for example right now, we're doing this in cinematic mode on the iPhone 14 Pro, which by the way can shoot at 4K versus the portrait video mode on the S22 Ultra, which can only do at 1080p. And the cinematic mode on the iPhone 14 Pro is just better, more accurate, more natural, and you can't deny that. And lastly, I want to discuss the ability on both the phones to shoot videos and photos in RAW mode. Now, even though the iPhone 14 Pro lets you shoot RAW photos using its Pro RAW mode in 48 megapixel, there's no Pro photo mode. Like on the S22 Ultra, there's a Pro mode that allows you to change exposure, aperture, white balance, focus, all of these things to take a RAW picture using that 108 megapixel lens. In fact, the S22 Ultra, it features an Expert RAW app which you can download separately, and it gives you far superior control in the way you can take photos and treat them in apps like Lightroom. And these controls are completely missing on the iPhone 14 Pro. The same holds true for video mode. There are no manual controls on the iPhone. On the S22 Ultra, there is a Pro video mode, which again allows you to change all these parameters, just giving you so much more control. You can even decide how you want the microphones to function to be able to record audio accordingly. There's also a histogram view, and you can also look at the audio levels while recording. But hey, the iPhone 14 Pro does offer ProRes video recording capability, which lets you shoot a much detail-loaded video, which you can then, import into Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro and color grade it, apply LUTs and creative looks to really get that cinematic look and feel. Alright, so we've reached the end of the video. And both the cameras are super. It really depends on what you like and the kind of things that you do. I mean, if you're going to take more videos than photos, then boom, the iPhone 14 Pro is automatically a better phone. Or for that matter, if you're going to focus more on low light shots or macro mode, or even zoomed in photos at 2x or 3x, even for that, the iPhone 14 Pro makes more sense. But on the flip side, if you're a casual photographer and you'll mostly be using the primary lens or the ultra-wide lens, that too in auto mode, you're probably better off with the S22 Ultra. That is if you like colorful, rich photos. If you're anything like me and you love portrait shots, you're going to want to prefer the S22 Ultra. And so this notion that iPhones are automatically the best smartphone cameras is a little over the top. Sure, they are a great set of cameras, but they're not the best for all use cases or for majority of the use cases for that matter. So here's what I suggest you do. Think about the kind of photos you take, the kind of photos you like, and then use this video as sort of a benchmark to decide as to which photo or which camera smartphone you really prefer. Alright, thanks for watching guys. I hope this was really helpful. And if it was, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification icon and mark all. I'll see you guys in the next one.